Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist and the sworn enemy of toxic progressives, the social justice clowns, and woke fools throughout the state of New Jersey, Fernando Uribe. Hope you all had a wonderful week. As always, there's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Election Day has come and gone, and while Governor Murphy has declared victory, his Republican challenger, Jack Ciarelli, has yet to concede. We'll see where that drama continues throughout the month of November. But of course, anybody and everybody with a social media feed or internet access, of course, has been able to, come up with a post-election analysis type of program, whether it be on Zoom, StreamYard, or other platforms. I know I did one with former two-term Assemblywoman Maria Rodriguez-Gregg on our biweekly program called Talking Jersey with Maria and Fernando. And of course, I did a breakdown of the local elections here in Jersey City. But what's really alarming, folks, is at the statewide level, whether it's NJTV, whether it's the Star Ledger, whether it's NorthJersey.com, or even, activists with programs that are breaking down the election, there just seems to be sort of a very, not necessarily an annoying tone, but a very misinformed tone. And of course, let me take to task once again the notorious characters here, as I did last week, but the normal, insufferable type of activists, such as Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, as well as Amy Torres, as well as Sophia Mohammed, who were able to gather last week for a post-election analysis. Now, thankfully, my amazing broadcast partner, Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, was on the panel. Otherwise, folks, if you had to sit through that 45 minutes, you probably would have been nauseous, like I almost got. But again, it was a very interesting breakdown of what's going on in New Jersey politics. And of course, folks, what really is infuriating is this idea that there's still this demand or need for progressive politics. I think we all saw what happened on Election Day in legislative races all throughout the state. I'm happy to say that, 7 Republican women will be going to Trenton on January 1st to occupy legislative seats. So that's great. And of course, in different pockets of the state where maybe, it's more conservative than it is here in Hudson and nearby Bergen counties. But one of the things that really, I think, is laughable is the idea of seeing this program and trying to at least convince its audience that progressive politics is the way to go in New Jersey. When we know that progressive politics have done nothing but doom the state financially and to some extent socially as well. Now, let me just start off by saying that, I can give credit where it's due when I look at a fellow PhD hosting a program. Now, folks, let me just start off by saying I'm not the end-all be-all of broadcast journalism or opinion journalism. I'm not claiming to be Walter Cronkite or even, Steve Adubato here, which is a legend in New Jersey media. But folks, if you're going to be doing post-election analysis, if you're going to be doing a show of any kind, you need to be a little coherent and not just sort of rambling on, which is what you see with Dr. Campos Medina. Now, again, listen, I'm not here to, sound like a bully, because I'm not. And many of you at home will be saying, oh, how dare you pick on a woman. Folks, I pick on progressive men too. Case in point, the local clown like Hector Oseguera, which I'll get to later on in the show. But I pick on him too, as well as other progressive males. So the idea that, my attacks on Patricia and Amy Torres and Sophia Mohammed are misogynistic and sexist, no, they're not. Yeah, they're insufferable women, but again, first and foremost, they're insufferable people because of their policy prescriptions. So, folks, I'm consistent all the way around. I pick on everybody. The idea that, folks, I'm not here to make friends with anybody. I'm not here to play nice. I'm not here to be that, the cowboy with the white hat rescuing the damsel in distress off the railroad tracks before the train comes. I'm not about that. I'm about giving you opinions that are factually based and that are honest and transparent. I can't say the same for watching that post-election program last week. Now, again, thank the Lord. Thank Jesus, Mary, and Joseph collectively that my amazing broadcast partner, Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, was on there. Because if she wasn't, there'd be no reason to watch that show. It would basically be 3 progressive women with their intellectually bankrupt ideas just sort of talking with each other. That's not really good television as far as I'm concerned. But again, let me get back to the presentation. Folks, again, I'm not the end-all be-all here. And certainly I have gotten exceedingly better at hosting programs. I've moderated debates. Check. Done it very well. I've moderated town halls online. Check. I've done that very well. I host multiple shows on a weekly and even bi-weekly basis. Not just here with this platform, with Hudson Media Group, but other platforms as well, via Insider NJ, and of course on Blog Talk Radio. But folks, again, we have to get back to sort of the bread and butter here. You know, if you're going to come up as an activist or as an analyst, you need to, A, do your homework, and B, work on your presentation skills. Folks, again, if you watched that show last week, and trust me, don't watch it with a full stomach, you'll get absolutely nauseous. It is just insufferable. It's just gibberish after gibberish after gibberish, starting with the host. Again, and I don't want anyone to say, oh, Fernando, you're picking on an immigrant because, you know, English isn't her first language. That's not even the case, okay? Amy Torres doesn't, I'm sure Amy Torres, her first language is English, and she's also coming off with gibberish, the usual nonsense that you hear from the left in the state, whether it's organizations like the one that she's the executive director of, you know, the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, or Sophia Muhammad with, I don't know, some revolutionary organization, who knows what the hell that is all about. And of course, you know, Patricia Campos Medina with her usual, you know, activism, you know, or calling the show back to woke work. I mean, can you pronounce the word correctly? Make a decision, Patricia. I mean, whether or not you're going to use that as your title. But again, folks, getting back to the show itself, it's just insufferable because we all know that whether it is about economic policies or social policies, the left continue to get it wrong. Now, I'll be very honest, and I have no reservation saying this. You know, shows like that are insufferable because they sort of fixate on the most inconsequential type of topics. Folks, I could give 2 drops of piss about pronouns, about the LGBTQ, AB, whatever consonant you're going to add to the alphabet army, right? Whatever they're bitching and moaning about today, all right? Or the idea that, I don't know, you want to give more money away to illegals because we don't coddle them enough in this state? You know, to Sophia Muhammad, you know, you're such a proud black woman. Are you kind of happy that Joe Biden and his administration wants to give $450,000 to illegals that were separated at the border? I haven't heard a single nickel being talked about being given to the black community. Why aren't you bitching and moaning about that? But yet you're going on programs and on your own social media feeds advocating for a revolution, advocating for black women and black men. Well, advocate for them. Be mad as hell, as you should be, the fact that blacks are getting the backstage treatment where illegals are being front and center. Okay, so let's start with that. Or Amy Torres, or the fact that, yeah, you're the executive director of one of the more insufferable groups in the state of New Jersey, but for whatever reason, yes, you either didn't take constitutional law, you don't know about sovereignty, you don't understand about borders, you want to placate illegals at all turns. I mean, is that fiscally responsible? Of course not. But Amy, you know, that's a little bit probably above your pay grade. And then we get to a fellow PhD like Patricia Campos Medina. It's astonishing to me, folks, that someone with graduate degrees like this can be as clueless as she is about policy. Yeah, she could be, you know, an activist and go to Rutgers University and be all, you know, have a party in her pants about, oh, Bernie Sanders is in town. So what are you cheering for? An 80-year-old man that's been in government for 50 years with no significant legislative accomplishments other than maybe, I don't know, renaming a post office after some nobody in the state of Vermont? That's who you revere? That's who you admire? Folks, these are dangerous ladies because they somehow continue to have the ear of legislators and the powerful in Trenton. And the sooner we expose them for the frauds that they are, the better we'll be. Because you know what? The less progressive politics in Trenton, the better. And that's a lesson for Democrats everywhere. You better start moving back to the middle, folks. Otherwise, you can forget about winning the midterms or winning the White House again in 2024. It's going to be a red tsunami from here on in. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. On this week's edition of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson, was the owner and publisher of Tap Into Jersey City, Steve Lenox. Now, it was great to talk with Steve for almost an hour on a plethora of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First off, we talked about sort of the surprise wins in both Ward E and F in the recent city council races in Jersey City, and Steve had a lot to say about what those winners mean moving forward.
Interesting, because at the end of the day, though, Steve, I mean, what you're doing is more hard news. You're reporting. I'm also reporting to some extent, but I'm also more opinion journalism when I have guests on and I want to have a conversation. And I wanted to make sure that nobody accused me, oh, Fernando's just hijacking the debate. No, I wanted to ask questions and get answers out of the candidates. And I thought that, and let's get to some of these races, though, for a moment, because, I mean, I called a few of these races, and some people called me crazy, but I would argue the one that surprised me the most, and let's just start in Jersey City real quick, in the council races, I would argue the biggest surprise I thought was maybe a tie. I really thought Jake Hudson was going to pull it out in Ward E. And I also believed that, Frank Gilmore was going to win. And I called that race, and people thought I was crazy for saying that. But I just knew from talking to people on the ground, talking to certain operatives, I just had a sense that Frank's campaign was the most transparent in that ward, and it seemed like it paid off for him. I wasn't surprised by that. I was surprised more by Jake Hudson not winning in Ward E. Any races that caught you off guard?
Not really. I think I would agree on Ward E. Not necessarily that I thought Jake was going to win. I mean, I thought he stood a good shot, and you would have thought with Mayor Fulop's endorsement, which meant so much in most of the other wards, that would have carried him through the day. And Jake has an incredible energy about him, as we all know, and he's got a passion for that part of Jersey City and all of Jersey City, and for some of those issues that matter so much to the voters. But James has his own kind of charisma and has built up his own universe of supporters and his own constituent relations record over the years. So I thought it would have been a little bit closer. I don't know if I would have predicted one or the other winning. I think in Ward F, I agree with you. I think Frank Gilmore really captured. Excuse me. I wish I had a cough button there. Sorry about that. I think Frank Gilmore captured the imagination of the residents there that he represents, and he's done so much to support children and changed his life in an incredible way. And I think that's a story that resonates, especially in a place like Ward F. And I think his predecessor before him, who will be leaving, also did a great job. But this is what the voters selected, and we'll see January 1st and going forward how he does up there on the council. It's a big switch, Fernando, right, to go from being an activist, a guy who's just out there shouting unity, to becoming a legislator. That's a big, big switch, and it'll be interesting to see if Frank Gilmore, and I'm sure he will, but it'll be interesting to see how he makes that adjustment and how his constituents respond.
Secondly, we talked about the importance of Stephen Fulop's win. And of course, if we are going to take the mayor at his word, this will be his third and final term. But certainly, speculation is already beginning about 2025 and who's in the driver's seat to win the mayor's seat in Hudson County's largest city. Let's see what Steve Lenox had to say about it.
I just thought, hey, and we'll get to the at-large races in a minute, because there's a name there that I think is a big mayoral name to think about in 2025. But I thought, hey, whoever wins in Ward E, that person's got the inside track, because Ward E is changing, and I think there's a part of Ward E that kind of represents a lot of different blocks of the city. I said, hey, if James wins or Jake wins, I think that's the inside track for mayor in 2025. And James just didn't scrape by. James didn't do a Governor Murphy and just scrape by the skin of his teeth. James kind of, not only did he score, but he won by a couple of touchdowns, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the question, of course, for James, or if it had been Jake winning, comes down to how can they translate their politics into the rest of the city. Jersey City is a big place with almost 100,000 residents now. And you're right, Ward E has become very diverse, obviously, socioeconomically and racially and everything else. And you really have to be able to appeal to a lot of different people. I think it's reasonable to believe that either one of them could be a mayoral candidate or have the inside track, as you said, based on the winner. But as you're alluding to, too, they're certainly not the only two names out there. And when we talk about those at-large candidates, and one in particular, there's a very attractive candidate out there, at least one more. And Fernando, you know better than anybody, and we learned this last week, 4 years is an absolute lifetime in politics, right? I mean, where we're today as opposed to where we were sitting last Monday, not just in Jersey City or in Hoboken or Bayonne, but statewide. I mean, what we're looking at, what Trenton's going to look like, and how that all played out quickly. And then who knows what Steve's plans are, Mayor Fulop's plans are. It's impossible. I would imagine his calculus may have changed a little bit last Tuesday night based on one particular person not being in a position of power right now. But it's impossible to say. It's like handicapping one of these football games or something. You can't predict all the intangibles.
Oh, absolutely. Again, and as they say, picking the spread sometimes is challenging. And when you look at picking the spread when it comes to local races, that can be challenging also.
It was a very interesting interview with Steve Lenox. You can certainly hear it in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. These exclusives I'll continue to bring you every single week on Blog Talk Radio. And here's some local stories for your consideration. And quite an interesting interview that I caught last week via the Hudson County View. And again, great job by John Hines as he interviewed local progressive clown himself, Hector Oseguera, here at the Hudson Media Group studio. Now, of course, folks, it was pretty interesting to see Hector Oseguera bloviate, as usual, about how great progressive politics are when we all know that that's not the case. So again, credit to John for great questions and a great conversation. But it was interesting for me to see, sort of Hector come out here and brag about, progressive candidates and how successful they were. Yeah, I get it. James Solomon won overwhelmingly in Ward E. Whether or not, Frank Gilmore is an ultra-progressive candidate to his liking, we'll see. But obviously he won with 56% of the vote in Ward F. And we're seeing a runoff between the incumbent Richard Borgiano and Kevin Bing. Now, what happens there remains to be seen. But folks, what's really interesting to me about Hector Oseguera and progressives in Hudson County is this sort of unfounded, mentality that they have about the fact that, they feel that progressive politics is the way to go. And it's just not. Do you see why New Jersey, again, is in the awful economic state that it's in? I just talked about it during my opening monologue with those progressive women that are absolutely insufferable. Well, again, when we talk about insufferable people, folks, Hector Oseguera comes to mind as well. Now, listen, I'm a big boy, and I get that, when you're doing media, people take shots at you. And I think from, my perspective is I'm old school Latino. You want to take a shot at me once, I'm never going to forget it, and I'm going to keep taking shots at you until you do something about it. So when it comes to Hector Oseguera, be careful who you are ridiculing here, Hector, whether it comes to me and my brand of opinion journalism, because it's respected. You may not think so, but, 5 awards will tell you differently. And unless you want to go on record and say that the Hudson County Latino Foundation, a very reputable organization, is not one because they decided to give me an award for my community service and my contributions to the community as a Latino. If you want to go on record and saying that, be my guest. But the idea that, you like to take shots at people you don't agree with, well, that's fine. I can give it right back, and I can give it better. So I don't want to be petty here because it's, I'll just take after you a little bit. But, bro, the last person that you should be talking about is me when it comes to either my brand, when it comes to a podcast, when it comes to other programs. Bro, win a race. Be relevant. Don't be part of some joke of an organization like Progressive Democrats of Hudson County and expect me to take you seriously, okay? Because as I said before, people like you care about pronouns. People like you think we're going to be underwater anytime soon and Aquaman's going to be knocking on my door because of climate change and all the climate hysteria that you and your ilk subscribe to. Or the idea that somehow when you went to law school, right, because you're all proud about being a lawyer, somehow you're telling people that you slept through constitutional law. Because if you don't believe in borders and sovereignty, that's written into the document itself. So again, you're telling everybody, A, you failed high school biology, B, you don't understand science altogether, and moving forward, you clearly didn't do well in constitutional law when you went to law school. So again, folks, I get it that Hector Oseguera remains a visible person in Hudson County politics, but he's not very relevant. Win races, push people that can win races. Don't just jump on a bandwagon. Don't just be at a James Solomon rally and all of a sudden think that, I'm giving a rubber stamp. Folks, nobody needs Hector Oseguera's rubber stamp. It does nothing to move the needle when it comes to candidacy. It really doesn't. It doesn't move the needle for his own candidacy. You think it moves the needle for other candidates? Please, let's stop and let's take a breath and let's look at Hector for what he is and someone that's not very relevant. And now to a story that warms my heart because I'm a dedicated sports fan, and credit to Steve Lenox and Tap Into Jersey City, Hoboken, and Bayonne collectively for hiring legendary sports writer Jim Haig and adding him to the staff. For all of you that watch local high school sports, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hey, it's a great group of boys and girls at all these local high schools that are applying their craft, being dedicated to their sports, and hey, they're fun games to watch. Hopefully they go on to blossom and go to the college of their choice and excel there. And maybe, you know what, even at the professional level for high school boys playing football, hey, maybe their dream of going to the NFL will be realized. Maybe for some of the baseballs, players, guess what? Maybe going to Major League Baseball is a dream that they'll ultimately realize. Maybe for the boys and girls playing soccer, either playing for Major League Soccer or for women's organizations, that's a big thing. So, you know what? When you have someone like Jim Hague with his stellar reputation and his eye for talent, you know what? You're not going to miss anything when it comes to high school sports, especially with tap into Jersey City, Bayonne, and Hoboken. And once again, I congratulate Steve Lenox for hiring Jim Hague. That's a great addition to his staff. And you know what? For those of us that love local sports, you can enjoy it even more with Jim Hague writing about it for the foreseeable future. Now, in a local story that really affects all of us, and a nice job by Terry West with the Jersey Journal for her report on this story. Now, certainly, folks, Thanksgiving dinner and even filling up your gas tank continues to be very expensive in 2021. And certainly, you know what? We'll have to make some decisions about how we'll be consuming food and how we're going to be driving around and how much driving we'll be doing during the holiday season. Like many Hudson County residents, many of us are noticing how expensive products are becoming now during the course of the pandemic and even as we're trying to get out of the pandemic. Now, budgeting for many Hudson County residents is obviously going to become a reality. It's going to adjust the way really that a lot of us shop and also cook, especially during the holiday season. So federal economic statistics released this week confirm what many consumers have already known, is that prices have risen rapidly over the past year. The 6.2% price increase since last October was the single greatest increase in several decades. Of course, you can thank Joe Biden and, the Biden administration for this wonderful economic policy. Hey, but at least you're not seeing mean tweets anymore, right? Yeah, that's important stuff, folks. Now, for example, meat, fish, and eggs have seen some of the sharpest spikes, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, the price of pork has risen 14.1% in the past year, which is the most that it's increased in a single year since 1990, and beef went up 20.1%. Now, folks, listen, I've talked about this on previous episodes of this show, as well as my other programs, and seeing what inflation is creating. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be very clear about something. And, for those of you maybe that failed economics or didn't do well in economics when you took it in whatever college you attended, here are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to gas prices, people want, especially on the left, the president of the United States has nothing to do with gas prices. Yeah, he does. When you willingly decide to shut down a pipeline, all right, the Keystone Pipeline, and now you're considering shutting down another pipeline in Michigan, which helps provide, thousands of barrels of oil on a daily basis. You know what? You're hurting the American consumer. You're hurting drivers. Folks, the average cost of a gallon of gas in November of 2021 is $3.39. You know what it was exactly a year ago today? And I don't want to hear about the pandemic because we were starting to come out of it anyway. And people were driving back to work, people were going on vacations, whatever. It was a little over $2.10. So when we talk about, at least we got rid of Trump and we got rid of the bad orange man, and the left was, cheering hysterically and partying all night long in January of this year when Joe Biden took the oath of office and became the 46th president. Well, what's that gotten us, folks? Inflation, higher food costs, costs more to fill up your gas tanks. It's going to cost you more to heat up your homes. Now, with what many forecasters are calling for is going to be a brutally cold winter. But again, as I say all the time on my social media, at least you're not seeing mean tweets anymore, right? Hey, at least we're focusing on pronouns, right? Hey, at least we're making sure that boys can play in girls' sports, right? Oh, at least we're making sure that, hey, you know what? We're acquiescing to the alphabet army and making sure that we don't hurt anyone's feelings. Or we're making sure that we're going to coddle illegals by giving $450,000 to those separated at the border. Spare me. I could care less about any of the aforementioned. I care about heating my home. I care about driving my car and not having to almost maybe donate a kidney when it comes to filling up my gas tank. Folks, this isn't going away anytime soon. And once again, the Democrats, both at the state level when it comes to congressional races next year and even some Senate races nationally, might feel the brunt of this when voters might just say, hey, Democrats, you've had control of the White House, you've had control of both chambers of Congress for approximately 2 years, and you've done nothing. Oh, yes, infrastructure. Yes, the fact that we'll have high-speed internet everywhere, and that bridges and tunnels will be in better condition. Folks, I've been hearing this forever. Bridges are still the same. Tunnels are still the same. I don't know about broadband Wi-Fi everywhere. I don't know about you folks. That's the least bit of my concerns right now when it comes to the fact that we've been working on this forever. But As I said before, at least we're not seeing mean tweets anymore, right? That's what really matters to a lot of you on the left. And it reminds me again why so many of you, like again, the local progressive clowns like Hector Segura, and of course insufferable progressive women that are activists like Patricia Campos Medina, Amy Torres, and Sophia Mohammed continue to be clueless in today's political climate. But hey, what do I know? I'm only a professor, I'm an educator, and I'm also an award-winning journalist. What do I know? I just know the facts. How about you? Lastly, I want to thank Aaron Morrill, the publisher of the Jersey Times, for his report on this story. And certainly, Frank Gilmore has been the talk of Jersey City since his upset win on election night, securing 56% of the vote. Now, folks, what makes this story significant is the fact that it was a three-way race. So in those circumstances, the incumbent kind of has an easier time to try to win because of the dynamics, but that didn't matter to Frank Gilmore. And certainly during a recent interview with the Jersey Times, he talked about certainly how ecstatic he is to be serving on the city council, and certainly now the transition he'll have to make from being an activist to being a legislator at the city level. Now, I've had a chance to talk with Frank Gilmore when I interviewed him months ago on my podcast on Talking the Hudson. I'm looking forward to having him back on in December before he takes the oath of office on January the 1st. Folks, listen, say what you want. He's a guy that is an incredible story of redemption and a guy that got his life together after being incarcerated, and now he serves as a great example for young men and women of color, and for anybody for that matter, when it comes to running for local office. We'll see again what he does on the city council, how progressive he's going to be, whether or not he'll move too far left, or he'll just be his own independent voice like he campaigned on during this election cycle. One thing is James Solomon, folks, who, again, those type of progressive politics, they resonate well downtown in Ward E. We'll see how it resonates in Ward F. But again, with 56% of the vote, I think, voters pretty much are telling people we wanted to change, and they got exactly that. So again, congrats to Frank Gilmore, and certainly we'll see what he does once he enters the city council on January the 1st. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and also their channel on YouTube. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook, and of course, follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. And always remember, folks, you can check out all of my episodes of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. Exclusives have included HCDO chairwoman and now councilwoman-elect Amy DeGise. Tap into columnist in Jersey City, Bayonne, and Hoboken, Al Sullivan. Certainly Jersey Times owner and publisher Aaron Morrill, as well as Jersey Chief Prosecutor Jake Hudnett. Folks, these exclusives you won't see anywhere else in Hudson County media, especially on a podcast such as the one I've been hosting since March of 2017. I always appreciate your support. Make sure you check it out. Of course, episodes are available anywhere, anytime, from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, folks, at Professor Fernando Uribe. Also, follow this show on Instagram at Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe. And also hit me up on Twitter at NoFilterUribe. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier journalist and the sworn enemy of all the local toxic progressives, social justice clowns, and the woke fools throughout the state of New Jersey. It's Fernando Uribe. As always, take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here with the Hudson Media Group.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.